What's up, guys? So I have a story to tell. I guess first I want to back it up to college. Back when I was in college, when I was a freshman in college at 18, I remember I had a friend, female friend, who would jokingly say like, "Oh, I wish I just had like a sugar daddy or married somebody rich and didn't have to finish school and didn't have to work for the rest of my life." And I remember that was like the first time that I was really introduced to the concept of a sugar daddy and somebody really like expressing that they wanted that I mean, she was half joking, half serious, but I just remember feeling that was so odd that like an 18-year-old girl, or for anybody for that matter, but somebody that I knew would feel that kind of entitlement, like I shouldn't have to work, I shouldn't have to contribute to society, I just want to like lay back and be taken care of by a man. And that always struck me as so bizarre. And throughout my 20s, I would end up meeting more women who would express this kind of mindset, and some of them actually had a sugar daddy. They would have a guy who, you know, they met somehow and didn't start that way, but the guy would like buy them things, you know, like I remember I had a friend who she'd mention her computer broke and this guy would just like buy her a new computer. Or another friend who, similar thing, a guy would pay first class flights for her to go see him. To some people that sounds so glamorous, but yet I, from knowing them, always saw that there were strings attached. Like there were always, it was usually a very superficial bond with rules that weren't necessarily ideal. Not even like sexually, but just, you know, like maybe they're married and you're the side piece, right? Or like their marriage situation is unclear, or their relationship situation is unclear, but they like having a pretty girl as arm candy, right? So I would watch these girls both with like amazement that they had somehow achieved this on their own, got a free computer, got a free flight to this, free vacation there, but also kind of like with judgment of like I don't blame them for trying to hustle and get these things out of it, but also judging their ability to like assess somebody's character and like, is this really the kind of person, the kind of man you want to be associated with? A guy who literally pays for your affection or your time, and who values you through gifts, through monetary compensation. But flash forward years later, I moved to Miami Beach. This was at the time of this video almost 2 years ago. And I was self-employed and it wasn't going very well. I had quit a 6-figure salary the year before because I was sick of that company, sick of the office politics and everything. And I thought, I'm going to start my own business. Like, I think I can do this. I have the connections that I need. I'm going to figure this out. And what started as a very empowering sort of quest and a very liberating quest of being self-employed ended up being extremely difficult financially, professionally, mentally, emotionally. And then of course within a month of moving to Miami and kind of like starting my life over, the coronavirus lockdown hit. And so that affected my already very low, humble income. It hit it drastically to the point where now I wasn't just poor, I was now like destitute. And I tried to get creative, you know, especially during a lockdown. It's like there's only so many things I can do sitting at home, right, without much to do outside. So, you know, I kept trying to grow my business, but I also tried to think of creative ways to, you know, to make money. And this idea of the sugar daddy came back to me. And in trying to build my own business and being self-employed, I really thought, you know what? It would be really great to have a mentor, like a guy who I can connect with intellectually, who can maybe teach me about business. And then I guess in return, he can spend time with somebody who's a lot younger, somebody who is impressionable and who, you know, maybe could bring some vibrance to his life. I didn't want to have a sexual connection with somebody who I otherwise wouldn't want to have sex with. Like I didn't want to have the sort of typical sugar daddy arrangement that I think people sort of envision when they think of that, or like that friend that I mentioned when I was 18. Like I didn't want that. I didn't want a partnership. I really wanted a mentorship with somebody who was successful, and that, you know what, right now I'm poor. If nothing else, I wouldn't mind going to dinner with somebody knowing that they're going to cover the bill. They like hanging out with me, and I, you know, get some business advice in the process. Looking back though, that mindset was like naive and overly optimistic, because it was very like self-serving, of like, oh, I'll just get everything I want, and this guy, an older man, will just enjoy hanging out with me. I ended up creating an account on seekingarrangements.com, and I had no idea what to expect, right? But I was hoping for the best. Remember, this is during the lockdown, so there's only so many things I can do. I'm like, why not? Why not try this? Like, I'm curious. And it's funny how you envision or like hope things will be a certain way, and then they're not at all like that. Like maybe for straight people, maybe for women, this is a totally different process and experience, because society tells us that like a man is supposed to take care of a woman, right? So I think it's kind of instilled in both a lot of women's minds and a lot of men's minds that like money is a form of like courtship. This is something that in a heterosexual dynamic I think is very much like enforced. A lot of men expect to take care of a woman financially, but it's also like a power move, I think. And I think a lot of women expect to be taken care of financially as well, because they're told that that's what a man is supposed to do. But for me, it was slim pickings on this platform. I think in my mind, I assumed that I would meet somebody, or that I might meet somebody who you're not necessarily like drawn to physically, but that is like a decent looking guy and happens to be very successful and has mastered something intellectually or business or like professionally. And that for me was, again, like I wanted that mentorship and to like absorb as much information as I could from somebody like that, who I otherwise probably would never meet. But the thing is, I think I was over romanticizing what that experience could be, because the reality is, if a guy is successful enough and like, you know, decent looking and you know, has his shit together, he's probably not going to be drawn to a platform like this. Quality seeks quality. I just remember this one man who was like, I mean, he honestly looked 80 something, and you could tell that he spent all day out in the sun, very like South Floridian, stereotypical old man who like just had leathery skin. And I just remember he reached out to me multiple times. I never responded. And he would point out my teeth. He was like, I really like your teeth, which is such a weird thing to say. You know, it's one thing to say like, you have a really nice smile. That's a decent opening line, right? But to point out somebody's teeth is so like clinical and bizarre. A few other guys reached out who seemed very spammy. Like their first message was like, send me a WhatsApp message. I want to take care of you, da 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 da. And I was like, this is definitely, something's off here. Like that's not, this isn't a normal sort of interaction. Anyway, so I had a few like bizarre interactions. And so a few months later, I was just kind of annoyed. I was like, why am I doing this? Like, what am I getting out of this? Like, these men are wasting my time. This is a waste of time. I realized like, even best case scenario, if I had connected with somebody, where does that go? Like, what does that evolve into? At a certain point, me knowing me, I probably would feel exploited, even though I think that exploitation goes both ways. But I was just thinking, if I actually had a situation where, you know, at that time, me struggling financially, trying to build a business, if I had somebody somehow come in, swing in, and like save the day, I would never really feel safe or secure, because I would think, this person holds the keys. Like, this person is in total control of like my finances and stuff, which is how I don't understand how so many people will enter relationships or marriages like that. And maybe it's just because I have trust issues, I don't know, but I would never feel totally comfortable having such an imbalanced relationship with someone. And also, I think just not having my own identity of like building my own thing. So eventually I was like, this was a silly, funny experiment, but like, I'm not meant for this kind of thing. Just like at 18, when my friend had said that, and I looked at her like, huh? I know myself well enough to know that I'm somebody who has to learn on his own and has to build something on his own. Eventually, I don't know if it's just luck or a combination of like serendipity and you know, paying attention and being observant of what I was trying to build professionally, but the business I was trying to get off the ground, because of the pandemic, it got me more desperate, and I ended up going in a route that I didn't want to because it wasn't my expertise. But those were the projects, like consulting projects, that were coming my way. So I finally caved and accepted them. And I then realized how actually easy and lucrative it was. And so I kept doing it. And by the end of 2020, I was actually doing way better professionally. I was working part-time, you know, self-employed, a few hours a day. The rest of the day I would hang out, I would go to the beach. And it was a really nice lifestyle. But there was always this anxiety in the back of my mind of like, what if next month my finances just like fall apart? Like, what if another hit happens just like at the start of the lockdown and it completely compromises my finances? So as I kept growing this business basically in social media with my consulting projects, I started looking for a full-time job. And in March of this year, 2021, I started a full-time job while still doing my side stuff, which was a great combination because I still then have this sort of passion project that's mine, but it's not like I'm so dependent on it that I'm stressed every day, even if the money's good that month. Like always this anxiety, this seed in the back of your mind of like, what if shit falls apart? Like there's so much pressure. So since March of this year, I've had a full-time income while also growing my own business on the side. And I've also gotten really into investments with the stock market and with cryptocurrency. And just like that, I mean, it wasn't overnight, but over the months, I've become more successful than I ever thought financially, than I ever thought I would become at this age. I'm now 30. In this process, I've skipped a tax bracket, which I didn't even know really was possible. It's been such a bizarre spin of events to go from literally struggling financially last year and worrying about money to suddenly, honestly, being the most, just financially speaking, professionally speaking, I'm the most successful person I know right now. And that could change tomorrow. I've learned that. I've been poor. It might happen again next year, who knows? But in this moment, I'm really proud of what I built and the fact that I'm in a great place professionally and financially where I feel totally secure. And it's just this bizarre spin of events where I'm like, oh, I had the right instinct that a sugar daddy is like not what I would ever want for myself. Deep down, I knew that, and I know it now even more now that I have this success. Like, I'm sure I now make more money than a lot of the guys on a platform like that claiming to want to be or to be a sugar daddy. One thing that I've learned about capitalism too in America is that once you reach a certain level of wealth, it becomes even easier to become wealthier. And I had experienced that when I was poor as well, that when you're poor, it becomes that much easier to stay poor. I feel like capitalism is all about extremes. It's like once you're in that zone, it's a domino effect that parallels what that zone represents. So it's like, you know, making a lot more money this year, then I would invest it back, right? Instead of spending it on like nice shoes or a nice car. I mean, I will say that I definitely splurge on travel. I mean, that hasn't changed over the years, as many of you guys know from my travel videos. But beyond that, like, I'm not really a big spender at all. So I invest a lot of my money back into the stock market, back into cryptocurrency and that kind of thing. And so then I've made even more money through that. So it's been kind of this avalanche effect. And now I'm setting my goals on like hopefully retiring within the next decade. If I can keep this up consistently, then I won't need a full-time job. Then I can just depend on myself and focus on investments, focus on my own business, if I want to continue with that path. But I guess the point of my story is that in the end, I sort of, in a weird way, became my own sugar daddy because of me knowing me and knowing that in the end, it's always going to be important for me to have my own identity and my own source of like nurturance, that like I have to be my own caretaker. You know, like sometimes we want to play the victim and be like, oh, I just wish somebody else would take care of me or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think some people are wired to be taken care of because they don't know how to take care of themselves, or they don't want to, or whatever. And I think there's other people who it's imperative for them to secure their own futures. And I think that's just how I'm built. So ironically, despite those financial difficulties that I put myself in, right, because I had quit a successful job and position, I think that fire under me of like, I have to succeed, I have to keep going, I have to make it, is actually what propelled me to now get to where I am professionally. So it's kind of funny to me now to think that like a year and a half ago, I was open to the possibility of having this kind of sugar daddy dynamic, just to help me out like financially. And then a year and a half later, it's like, if anything, I could become a sugar daddy now. Not that I would want to be, because I wouldn't want to use something as superficial as money to convince somebody to spend time with me. But it's just a funny like spin of events. But most of all, I'm proud of what I learned about myself, which is that I am a very particular person. And I've always been particular about everything. I've always been somebody who very much knows what he likes and wants in life, and very much knows what he doesn't want and doesn't like. And I'm glad that I stuck to that to maintain control of my own life and the things that I want in my life. By the way, at the time that I put out this video, it will have been 4 years that I've had this YouTube channel. So I wanted to put out this video to kind of, to end the year, my 4th year of this channel on, I don't know, I guess a noteworthy update of like, you know, life taking you on these journeys and you not knowing what's going to come next. But along the way, it's like you learn more about yourself and you keep growing and you keep evolving. So thank you to those of you who are subscribed to me. My 5th year of this channel is approaching. I don't know yet what themes I want to cover and how I want to shift with this channel. You guys have probably noticed, for those of you who've been with me over the years, every year I've kind of, maybe not pivoted, maybe that's a little dramatic, but every year I've tried to introduce new themes, and this channel keeps evolving as I do, of course. As I evolve, the channel evolves. So we'll see what happens next year. I remember earlier this year, I think it was earlier this year, I said I was going to slow down on videos, and then I ended up still putting one out every single week because new things would happen, new stories, new experiences, new things that I wanted to talk about. So it would be silly of me to say once again, I think I'm going to slow down on videos, because then if the opposite happens, you guys will never believe anything that I say. But I don't know what will happen this next year, this 5th year. I know that I have a lot going on professionally, as I mentioned. I know that this channel hasn't grown as much and as quickly as I would have hoped. But I also know that despite that, in terms of like the social media metrics, the engagement on my video is pretty good. Like, you guys who are subscribed watch all my videos, a lot of you comment. So I'm not abandoning this channel anytime soon. I just have to figure out what the next step is and what kind of new territory I want to go into with this channel. By the way, any suggestions are always welcomed. A few videos back, I had mentioned that my first video of 2022 will be totally decided by you guys, based on your votes in the comments. So that will be the next video. See you guys in 2022.